we'll begin by centering. Just taking a moment and sitting up, or if you're walking, just connecting with your breath, connecting with the points of your body in contact with the earth, and connecting with how you feel as you're arriving today. And just notice what's present in the physical body without judgment, just awareness. And what's present in the mental, emotional body. I'll begin with the opening chant from the Ashtanga Hridayam. Ragadirogan satatan shaktan ase shakaya prasatan ase shan atsukya moharadidan jagana yo purva vaidya namostu tasmai. Coming home to the wisdom inherent in these practices, the knowing that we have the capability to create great balance and harmony within our bodies, our minds, and our emotions through these wisdom practices. When we think about, again, these beautiful traditions of yoga, Ayurveda, we think of them in ways of sometimes of being separate, but they're actually not in any way separate. Yoga was the process of discovering union, or it's that state that is achieved when the mind is stilled. And Ayurveda is the way to take care of the body so that the state of yoga can be attained. So we'll just do a review of the meaning of Ayurveda. Of course, Ayur translates to life and Veda to science. So it is the science of life. And it's based on the belief that we are all comprised of the 5 elements, that we are the microcosm of the macrocosm, that true health and wellness is described as swastha in Ayurveda, means to be situated in the self. And so there is this constant play of a delicate balance that we find within ourselves, because we're always changing, right? With every season, as you say, you're really looking around and seeing how the gunas show up in life and matter all around you, and how the doshas are at play in yourself and in individuals that you know and in nature. So it's this, what I like to think of as like fine-tuning an instrument. If our body is an instrument, we're constantly adjusting it and bringing more tone, if you will. We also do this through sadhana, through yogic discipline. So really having the dedicated devotional time every single day to practice. And practice obviously doesn't look like just getting on your mat, but it does look like having a form of a daily routine or dinacharya, of assessing and knowing yourself so well that you can apply simple and gentle lifestyle modifications depending on what you need in any given moment to come back to balance. Of understanding your prakriti, which is your true nature, and your vikriti, which is what is out of balance in any given moment. And as Nidhi said, the tests can only really tell you so much. It's really fully embodied and comes into awareness through the practice of self-study. And the way that we work with our prakriti and our vikriti is by establishing ritucharya or changing our practices to align with the seasons. So does everyone already doing that? If you can drop a comment or put a thumbs up, or are you shifting how you eat and how you move and how you engage with life during the change of seasons?
Well, I think some just like naturally, like obviously I'm gonna eat watermelon in the summer and drink hotter drinks in the winter, but I think that's just more natural, not exactly specifically related to this.
Yes.
Because again, our body already knew what we were supposed to be doing anyway.
Exactly, exactly. So it is naturally arising, this desire to change with the seasons. For example, in the springtime, spring cleaning, right? We want to cleanse, we want to lighten, we want to clear our space. We want to maybe clean up our diet a little bit. In the fall, maybe we're attracted to like heavier foods like stews and sitting by the warm fire and things like this. So there's a natural move towards summer, as you mentioned, watermelon, and just nature invites us to make subtle shifts. In the practice of Ayurveda, we can definitely, and especially AyurYoga, if you're teaching yoga, you will shift the way you teach and the way you practice according to the seasons. We're going to talk all about that today. We're going to talk about shifting according to the seasons and shifting according to the individual. Okay, so if you have a yoga practice or if you are teaching yoga, if you're already doing this, wonderful. I hope you gain some gems of insight from it. And if not, no worries. We're going to talk all about it so you'll discover nuances that perhaps will help. The first stage, of course, is really understanding the tridosha theory of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, how it shows up, how they come together to form the foundation of matter. Vata, air and ether, Pitta, fire and water, mostly fire, and Kapha, earth and water, and the structure, the stability, the transformation, and the mobility. So we use this knowledge to then deepen our understanding. What does Vata dosha look like? And what does it apply to? So, I thought I had that to show up after we. One sec. I'm gonna invite you to not read it, but to let me just fix that. So what is Vata dosha? Tell me some of the qualities. You can type them in the chat or feel free to open your mic. Some of the qualities that are present in Vata dosha. The gunas. When we think about those 10 pairs of opposite qualities, what's present with Vata dosha? Is it hot or cold?
Cold.
Yes. Okay. Now I can see the chat. Capacity to expand energy. Great. Oops. David Costs. Okay. Are you you're seeing the screen that's got chapter 1, the desire for longevity, or are you seeing Vata dosha? Subtle.
It keeps going to share your screen and then it doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having tech challenges. Thank you. Okay. Working on the moon cycle too. Yes, that's powerful as well. Vata is dry and light and cold and rough and subtle. Beautiful. Okay. And then we have the time of year that it's applied to. So what time of year is connected with Vata dosha?
Winter or fall?
Yes. Fall and early winter generally in our climate. So what phase of life is connected to Vata dosha? Right, let's see. There we go. How about old age, right? The wisdom years. So once everything kind of like dries up a bit, there's the inner climate, to use Nidhi's term, that is ideal is, you remember what that is? Warm and moist, right? So not hot or cold. It's kind of like the Goldilocks sweet spot of health is the inner climate is warm and moist. And so as we move towards the Vata phase of life, everything gets a little dry, everything gets a little more cold. One of the fascinating things I learned in anatomy is that the synovial fluid that cushions your joints, when we're born, it's the consistency of water. But when we are in our 80s, it's the consistency of tapioca pudding. It just gets really viscous and like gummy and actually loses a lot of the ability to lubricate because a lot of the moisture gets dried up. If you've worked with fascia in any capacity, you know one of the ways to really create, to create a smooth, flexible musculoskeletal system is through hydration. So as these gunas come into play in old age, everything just kind of dries up a little bit. When Vata's imbalanced, what does that show up like? What does Vata imbalance look like? And there are physical manifestations, of course, and mental manifestations of Vata imbalance. So prone maybe to worry, anxiety, weight loss, joint pain, good scattered. Yes. Difficulty focusing. All those things that come in with aging. And if you are a Vata individual, you may be more prone to Vata imbalance, but it's available to all of us. At any time, we can each become Vata imbalanced. Yes, thank you. Sharp pains in the body. Yes, it's connected with like sciatica. If you think of the pain of sciatica, how it travels and how it's sharp, how it's like related to the nervous system. It is bloating and a tendency for the other doshas to be pushed out of balance. Really important too. If Vata is out of balance and Kapha is out of balance, we work with Vata first because if you think of wind in the environment, wind with mud, wind with water, we get a mudslide, right? Wind with fire, it's combustion. So we always kind of think of tending to Vata first when Vata is out of balance. And we'll know it is because of all of these symptoms. And you may have one or two of them: sleeplessness, restlessness, a worried mind, constipation, like the digestive system drying up a bit. Okay. And does anyone know where the home of Vata in the body is? There are a few places, not just one. Yeah. The gut. And like Carrie said before, there's the concept of all disease begins in the colon. in Ayurveda as well, as all disease begins in the mind and the emotions, but it also lives in the colon, and that's Vata. Yes. Okay, so the colon, the pelvic bowl, the ears, the skin, and the bones are the main sites of Vata in the body. I've always I've always connected the lungs with Kapha, but most many of these doshas have all of the doshas have sub doshas, and those sub doshas also live in different places in the body, but we're not going to go into that today. Um, but yeah, so knowing this, right? Knowing this is Vata dosha, and this is the way that it shows up through the gunas. This is kind of the main sites where it lives in our body. This is what it looks like when it's out of balance. We want it to be in balance. Vata in balance is all of the doshas in balance are wonderful, right? It's when it goes out of balance that we begin to experience a little difficulty. So none of these are good nor bad, right? It's how we're able to maintain that balance. And we can really do this through the practice of yoga. So we'll talk more about that, but we're going to go through each dosha first. So moving on to Pitta dosha, what qualities are related to Pitta dosha? Fire element. Hot, sharp, yes. The sharp quality of fire, the illuminating, the hot, of course, the penetrating and spreading, fire spreads, the capacity to transform and drying when in excess. Yes, it's transforming. Beautiful. Pitta dosha is connected with the season of summer and young adulthood, right? That time of life in your 20s. I think it's said to be from like the age of your late teens, the age of 16, into your 30s, into your 40s. Pitta dosha reigns supreme during that time. And you can imagine how that is. We're all at that time of life really transforming. There's a lot going on. There's a lot happening in your career. There's a lot happening in your life. Maybe you're becoming a parent. Okay. And then we think of the time of day. Oh, I didn't do Vata time of day, but you know it. But 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is important for if we're teaching yoga or practicing yoga, for knowing what dosha is prevalent at the time of day that we're doing so, because that will inform your practice. Okay, so Pitta is that other time now, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the East Coast. We are in Pitta time right now. It's a great time to learn, to focus, to kind of concentrate. There's the imbalances that arise with Pitta dosha when that is out of balance, when there's too much fire, right? So diarrhea, indigestion, ulcers, skin rashes, migraine, fevers, anger and irritation, all of those hot things that come through. Anything with that ends in itis is most times a form of pitta inflamed. Okay, so arthritis, colitis, gastritis, it's kind of all pitta dosha at play. The main sites of pitta dosha, pitta lives in the eyes. Do you ever get burning eyes when you were like working too hard? Or, that kind of the redness in the eyes, that's pitta. One of the wonderful dinacharya practices for pitta dosha is to spray your eyes with rose water in the morning. Just create that little cooling aspect. It lives in the small intestine, in the navel center, the liver, the gallbladder, and the spleen. If you think of these areas for like alcoholism is pitta inflaming, right? So people who have problems with alcohol generally have problems with these areas of their body. So it lives there. And then it has that quality of spreading, right? So it moves. It kind of, if you have the inflammation in your eyes, it might spread and kind of create a headache. Have you ever had that experience? Yeah. So just knowing that that's where pitta lives and that's kind of how it shows up in the body and where it is in the seasons of life and the seasons of nature will help inform us. Now, would we want to, how would we work with this? Say it's summertime and you are a pitta person. Would you want to be doing hot yoga or HIIT training in the summertime? Right? So it's a really beautiful way to be informed, but honestly, it's usually the pitta person who's attracted to those things. Yes, yes, water sports, coconut water. These are the things that will help us. Okay. Kapha dosha, kapha. What season is related to kapha? Yeah, beautiful, David. Fun. Pitta is balanced through fun. Yes.
Late winter and early spring. Spring.
Yep. Beautiful. Late winter, early spring. We are right in the midst of kapha season now, again on the East Coast. I think you are as well over on the West Coast. Um, it is that time of Earth as the prevalent element. So how does that, what are the gunas? How does that show up in terms of the 10 pairs of opposites?
Cold and wet.
Wet,
Heavy.
yes. Building and gathering energy. Beautiful. Gold, heavy, slow, wet, soft, right? And it is that kind of that sprout energy, all of the nourishment that's happening in the soil at this moment in time in order to transform and call in that pitta energy when the weather gets warmer for things to really sprout. And rebirth, yes, new growth. And what phase of life? Childhood, yeah. You can look at a child and see the kapha, right? The chubby cheeks, the cuddles, the nourishment, the compassion. And how does kapha show up when it's out of balance? What happens?
Overweight.
Right? Weight retention, weight and water retention. Yes. Heaviness, stuckness, weight gain, congestion, right? A lot of
Um,
spring allergies.
a lot of sweating.
Yeah. Yeah. Too much water, right? There can be too much water. Okay. I think of sweat more related to pitta. Pitta has a tendency to live in the sweat as well. So,
So
um,
maybe more oily,
yeah, well, pitta's
like
oily.
more,
Kapha's oily.
yeah,
Kapha's oily
like
as
maybe
well.
more oily instead of sweat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It can show up as depression, right? And then emotionally, it can show up as attachment, jealousy, greed, like not feeling like you have enough of something, of what you want. All right. The main sites of kapha are in the lungs, the stomach, the sinus, the lymph, and the adipose, the fat tissue of the body. So, this is why one of the practices that is so beneficial during springtime is garshan or dry skin brushing. And you just get this. I have raw silk gloves that I absolutely love. Raw silk gloves for like $10. But you can get a brush if you prefer a brush, and you just work towards your heart. You clear your lymph. You help your body clear your lymph. Sweating helps clear your lymph. Sauna helps clear your lymph. So it's a great time to do that. Springtime if you have kapha imbalance. And it's the time of day from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And so you'll see with Dinacharya, with having this daily routine that is aligned with the doshas, sometimes we're working with the dosha, And sometimes we're doing the opposite thing to bring balance. So, for example, that 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. time, we want to get moving. We don't want to give in to the kapha tendency to just sit. It's not the necessarily the ideal time to sit in a long meditation, but it is the ideal time. Kapha people love to meditate, right? Love it. But it might not be the best time of day to do it. The nighttime, however, so morning time we want to like work against kapha in a way, bring in the opposites to bring balance. But then the nighttime we want to embrace kapha's tendencies and let it bring us down, let it bring us quiet and calm and steady and soothing and cuddling and like stillness. We want to embrace that in the evening. And you'll see in pitta time too. Pitta time of day is 10 to 2. In the daytime, we want to use it. Use the pitta energy, focus, get stuff done. Don't start doing that at 10 p.m., right? You'll be up all night. Has anyone ever done that? Yeah, right. If you start something at 10 p.m., you're just whoosh, you get a lot done, but you're up forever, right? Back in college, it's yes. So sometimes you'll see during these times of day we're working along with the energy, and sometimes we're doing the opposite to bring balance. And that's common sense in a way of if you know the doshas as you get used to them and really bring them into your life, you'll see, Vata time of day, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. That's an ideal time if you are awake to meditate. If you're a Vata individual, you might want to sleep, right? Don't wake up at 3 a.m. every day or 4 a.m. It's not ideal. But 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., we can do creative things. We can get a lot done. That's the time of day where if I have a big task that I've been procrastinating around, and usually it has to do with like laundry, I'll set my timer for 20 minutes and I'll do as much as I can. And then I'm like, okay, you get a lot done in Vata time of day. It's a great time of day to communicate, to, if you have to talk to people, if you have to make phone calls, I kind of set them for that time of day as much as I can. So just getting, ever more. It's an ongoing process, I find. I've been practicing since 2009, Ayurveda since 2009, yoga since 1993. And it's an ongoing practice of learning and making the routine supportive and then falling out of it and then coming back gently with compassion. So it's really beautiful. That's just a review. Any questions about the doshas or insights before I move on? It's pretty, the doshas.
I have an insight. I just want to say if the doctors here in this country would utilize this, like if you go back to the pitta screen, and it talks about the imbalances, um, all of these things, uh, all of those things, including the anger, like all of that has been part of my medical history. And I just find it really interesting that somebody had simply suggested, okay, so we can try to balance it with something opposite. Um, like I've been over my life, been told I had 19 different autoimmune disorders. I don't think so. I think I had a whole lot of imbalances from caused from other things because I just find it interesting. But my actual question is, what about like in my life, I have no appendix and no gallbladder. So when organs are removed from the body and those organs have function, do do they then just like be eliminated, or do you still have to worry about the actual balance of those things?
So I have a response, and I don't know all there is to know in any way about this. And if anyone else has anything they'd like to share, please type it in the chat. My thought on this is I worked with people for a long time with phantom limb pain because I worked with veterans. A lot of veterans are missing limbs. And when a person has lost a limb, their mind still senses and connects with that part of the body, even though it's no longer there. And so I would absolutely assume that it would be the same with the organs. So there's a space now where the organ used to be. And as we know, when there's a space, wind comes in. And what happens with wind and fire, if it's the home of pitta dosha, and the space is still there, and this is more than just your physical body. So I would encourage that if there's an organ that's been missing, I would just really give that area of your body, if it feels good, touch and love. Love is an antidote to pitta. So it might be helpful to just, I think Abhyanga is a practice everyone should do all of the time. Gentle, gentle Abhyanga if you are pregnant, not very brisk or detoxifying. Avoid it if you have a fever, but otherwise, I think everybody should be doing Abhyanga every day. It's like the best practice in the world. And it might be helpful and nourishing to focus on the areas of the body where the organs were with Abhyanga, with the oil, with a sense of bringing love and nourishment there, because your mind probably still relates to that part of the body as if it is completely intact.
That
As if,
makes so much sense to me, because I've also had a hysterectomy, so there's no uterus, but it doesn't mean I don't feel like a female and
yeah,
still want to nurture children. So that makes a lot of sense to me. It always intrigued me, and I just find it really interesting how all of my medical stuff lines up so, for lack of a better word, textbook
yeah,
with Ayurveda. But anyway, thank you.
you're welcome. I'm going to give you all, when we finish here, I have a colleague at the Ayurvedic Institute, and they have an incredible student clinic that they're looking for people to come in for. So I'll give you information about that if you're interested. And what that looks like is a practitioner who's on the path to become a doctor. I'm a lifestyle counselor and a doula on the path to become a practitioner. The practitioner is then on the path to become a doctor if they're doing the full thing. So this student clinic is basically you will meet with a practitioner becoming a doctor and a group of students that are under them, but everybody has their Zoom cameras off and you just talk to the person, but it's free. So if you would like, and it's amazing. They're really good, high quality. They train with Dr. Vasant Lad, so really high quality, beautiful practitioners. So if you're interested, I'll just put that out in the follow-up email. It might be really nice, and you get really personalized, individualized attention by someone more knowledgeable than me. So it'll be great. Mahagunas. These are so important all throughout. So just continually, again, like going back to the foundations and going deeper with them all the time. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And my favorite way to learn and teach about these is comparing them to the lotus flower. So sattva represents purity and light and goodness and truth. And it is related to the blossom of the lotus. Rajas is mobility, activity, striving towards the light. It's the stem of the lotus. And tamas is inertia and lethargy and stuckness and ignorance. And it's compared to the roots of the lotus. And so these are the three great qualities. There's the gunas, the 10 pairs of opposites, and the mahagunas are the three great qualities. And these are at play within everything. And you'll see how they're related to the doshas as well. Tamas is a little bit related to kapha, out of balance. But ultimately, the question is when we are teaching yoga or practicing yoga, what is the prevalent dosha of the day, of the season, of the individual or yourself? And what is the quality, the great quality most at play? So, for example, how would this look? Say we're teaching a yoga class and it's springtime, so it's kapha dosha time. It's a rainy, today it's a perfect day here. It's a rainy, cold, heavy, dense day. And you're teaching, and everyone comes in and just sits. It just kind of plop down. What kind of energy would that be? it would be with a yin class. Yes. It would be very tamasic, kapha aggravated, right? It was just, it's not like a sweet sit. Like there's a difference between like a sattvic sit and a tamas sit, right? There, can you feel the difference? Like a sweet compassion meditation that you feel light and bright and illuminated, or a heavy, dull fatigue. I'm tired. I don't even really want to be here, but I'm showing up. So just noticing, you can see what's at play by how you're moving, feeling, being, how you're sitting and walking. Rajas is the motion. So Rajas might be connected to Pitta, maybe connected to Vata. It's activity, it's motion, it's transformation. But Rajas is, if you think of a perfect Rajasic example, it would be like New York City. Or a big city of any kind, but I think of New York because that's where I live and it's close. But it's constantly going, it's constantly moving. There's not a lot of sattva. There's too much movement for there to be sweetness. You're not even paying attention to the beautiful sky or the sunset that's there because you're just focused on where you're going and you're just getting there and you're just moving. So when we think about the Mahagunas, we can bring Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas into everything that we do. We can see it in everything that is, and we can bring it into everything that we do. All right. Yes. People live up high in the air. Yep. Like skyscrapers, buildings that are, you know, 30 stories high. Those are very Vata, very Rajasic. There's a lot of movement. So we want to be able to kind of bring that down to earth. When there's a lot of tamas, we need to use rajas to get things moving, right? We can't go right to sattva necessarily if we're feeling very tamasic. We're feeling kind of like, we all get there. We all have all three of these. If we are in a space, if we just kind of, I'm thinking politics. I can definitely, I can definitely feel tamasic about politics. Like apathetic, ignorant. I don't care. I don't want to hear your point of view. I just like that to me represents some tamas. I'm just stuck on my own ideas and I don't even want to hear about yours. And that's all there is to it. That could be tamasic. We're not going to go right to like sweetness and light. That's spiritual bypassing. So we need a little rajas. We need a little movement and activity to get there. I'm sure there are better examples, but the one coming to mind. Yeah, feel free to share any examples that come up. When have you noticed any of these really prevalent in your own self or in your students or people that you love and live with, maybe? I think it's sattvic is like, oh, after a kirtan or after being in the presence of a guru.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna go that extreme, but even if I'm just like in for my daily life, like if I'm feeling depressed or in a bad mood, you can't go instantly to a good mood, but you can go for a walk and kind of get some fresh air and some movement and come back and have that whole shift of then you feel a bit more peaceful, but you can't. Is that I don't know. That's how I
I,
look at it for my own life.
that's an excellent example. Thank you. That's perfect. Yep. So if you're feeling,
My
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, sorry. Um, my mother is like the most rajasic woman I've ever like. She works and she's always doing things. It's like she can't like when she's on a conference call, she needs to be like making food, even if no one eats it, or just like rearranging things, or everywhere she goes, it's just like a tornado of clutter and I've inherited some of this rajasic energy, and I notice when I watch myself like on like recordings of like Zoom things or something, I notice how much I move. Like I don't just like sit there. Like everyone else is just like sitting nicely and just is able to just like sit. I notice I'm just like constantly fidgeting and like doing things. Um, this it's my base, you know. Just be like that.
Yes, yes, thank you for sharing. And it is that sweet awareness, right? When we do notice like this quality lives within us. They all do, and they all live within us in different ways and formats, and some are more prone, or we're more prone to one than another. It's that sweet self-compassion that we can come in with about it. Of like, yeah, I know when I feel depressed, I go for a walk. Or when I'm like sitting to listen, I can't sit. I have to move. Or there are those like beautiful moments of aha, this is me, and that's beautiful. Um, yes, so if there's a lot of rajas, we may be able to find sweetness, and we are not striving for sweetness because that in itself is rajasic. But we may need some tamas, we may need some steadiness, we may need some, and you can't go straight there either necessarily, right? If you take a rajasic, say a rajasic yoga class, right? You come in to teach yoga and it's a hot summer day, but there's a lot of wind, and everyone comes in and they're just like, whoo, they're all like twirling around and moving around and chatting, and they're, this is Vata too, I think, but like they're putting down their yoga mat, and then they have to go get their bolster, and they go get their bolster, and then they forgot their blanket, and they go get their blanket, and then they have to use the bathroom, and then they forgot to hang their coat up, so they're just like, you know what I mean? We've all been in situations like that. We're just like either been in it ourselves or like seen someone in that, and it's like, oh, like just sit for a moment. But they can't necessarily. It's not maybe ideal. One of my teachers always said, meet them where they are and bring them where they need to go. So if this is going on, we're going to meet them right there. We're not going to get them right down, sit down. That's not going to work very well, right? So we meet them standing. I taught a class once, there was like 300 people there, and I was so nervous, and the whole class was like, nobody was focused. Everybody was chatting, you know, big room, lots of people. It was a festival. Everybody was talking and talking, and it's like I'm up, like I have to work with it. And so what I ended up doing was have them like get on their tippy toes and like dance up to the top of their mat and dance to the back of their mat and play with their balance and little things kind of in a way. If you have children, you see this too. Sometimes it's like, get the energy out and then you can sit. So there's whatever that may take, is what we're going to talk about next. Ways to do that in a yoga class, different, and not just yoga class, your own practice, your own daily routine, your own seasonal routine. So how are we feeling? It's 12, it's almost 12. Why don't we take 5 minutes and then come back and we'll get into this? Let's take 10, okay? And then we'll come back and we'll get into the practices. And the practices include asana, pranayama, raga, music, color choices, scents. They will all apply in helping us bring balance to the doshas and to activate and to work with the gunas. So we'll see you back in 10 minutes. Okay.
Do you want to actually practice?
We might just do simple practices, but not like a full movement practice.
Right, I was just trying to understand whether to change rooms. Thank you.
Okay, no, you're perfect. Well, whatever we do will be simple. Okay. Okay. So beginning to just look, as you're already doing, at the world around you and seeing what is present in terms of the doshas, the elements, the gunas, the 10 pairs of opposite qualities, and the mahagunas, or those 3 great qualities, sattva, rajas, and tamas. It can really awaken understanding of what would be most beneficial for bringing balance. And remember, bringing balance, we want a warm, moist environment, and we want to cultivate opposites to bring about balance. So we'll start out with asana. We're most familiar with asana in Western yoga, in Yoga Land Yoga, but it is an important part of all of yoga practice. This idea of sadhana, this idea of a dedicated, devoted practice to your body, to achieving that state of union. So when we take asana, asana means seat, and swasta, the Ayurvedic definition of health, means to be situated, oh, that's a typo, to be situated in the self. So when we find a comfortable seat, right, a steady seat, the mind follows the breath and the body, and then we arrive at this idea of swasta, to be situated in the self. But some things to consider in your yoga practice that are going to be influenced and will inform your practice are drishti, your focal point where you look, the postures that you choose, the pacing of your practice, how quickly or slowly you go, how much stillness you invite in, or how much movement, and even the cueing, the words that you use are going to be important. So let's cover first drishti. So your focus while you're practicing. If you are a Vata individual, where do you think your focus would like to be?
All over the place.
All over the place. That's where it may be where it's going, right? Yes, good. Your focus might be happening like all around. You might be paying a lot of attention to your environment, to the people behind you and next to you if you're in a class. The invitation for Vata is to take the drishti down, take it towards the earth, below the horizon line. So during the Vata time of year, maybe if it's fall or early winter, if you're a Vata individual, and just notice how it feels to take the drishti down. What do we tell people in balance poses when they have challenges balancing? Take the drishti to the earth, right? Find a still point, a point that doesn't move, and it helps steady your balance in your physical body, but it's also going to help steady the mind. And so just note for a second if it feels good to just look around your environment and find a point to gaze at that's below the horizon line. So look down, a little tuck of the chin, and find a point that is in your line of vision. Something pleasing or neutral. It can be anything at all, just nothing that creates strong emotions. And take a few soft breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. Notice where the breath goes in the body. Notice if there's a settling or quieting of the mind. And then slowly take your attention up. Look above the horizon line. So the chin is slightly up, and find something above the horizon line that you can focus your gaze on. And we'll do the same, just some soft breaths, and notice how this feels, if there's a difference, an energy that arises from looking upwards. Maybe there's a brightening or an energizing quality. Just notice what you notice. And then slowly come back to center. And now find something to gaze upon that's directly in the horizon line, directly in line with your eyes. And notice how this feels. Are there differences between the different points of drishti? Perhaps here you sense a sharpness or a focus. Maybe a naturally kind of penetrating gaze. If you're focusing on one point. And become aware of the breath. If the breath has changed, the rhythm or the pace, or the quality of the breath and where it goes in the body. And when you feel ready, we'll gently come back. And we'll share, how did that feel? We took 3 different drishti and perhaps invited 3 different containers of feeling.
Okay, so I've always wondered why yoga teaches how do you look at the front edge of your mat. Now I know, because when you look down, it's almost calming and relaxing, like you could relax into sleep. When I looked up, I could almost hear my blood. I don't know, when you hear your heartbeat and your blood pumping in your head. And then when at the exact horizon, the sharper thought that you said, things may seem sharper, I could focus really easy and not be too relaxed or too. Yeah, that's a very interesting exercise.
Thank you for sharing.
Very similar from this perspective. I'd add one thing is my mind worked a little bit more quickly, and scattered is the term I'll use when I was looking up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Very
you.
sharp when I was looking direct. I was actually looking directly at David, which you're a blur because I had my glasses off, but I didn't see you, but I was still focused. So I'm really glad you were still. Thank you, David.
Nicole said, looking down made me feel grounded in my body. Looking up, I felt light and a little more thoughts. In the horizon line, I felt focused. So everyone had a similar experience. And I used words too to perhaps invite awareness of that, but not to guide that experience. I think the experience is what happens with the drishti. And so that's the first step in considering where to place your gaze in asana. So where do you think a downward gaze would be helpful? For what type of individual? For what dosha? If it's calming and grounding, who would that be ideal for?
Kapha.
Or
Wouldn't
vata?
it be for? Yeah.
Yeah, vata. Because kapha is naturally grounded,
Vata, right? Yeah.
right? So vata, if they're all over here, bringing it down helps automatically kind of just subtly still the mind, right? And then how kapha would be that upward gaze, right? The lightening and brightening effect of looking up, maybe expanding perspective or inviting new thoughts or even, opening up. Yeah. And pitta will benefit honestly from all 3 depending. But pitta will appreciate the sharp focus point, the point of gaze. So you can see also if you want to like ignite pitta in the mind, your gaze is going to help you do that. If you want to be focused, you can, if you're working on I do this all the time, right? You're working on the computer a long time, you get tired, your eyes are fatigued, you can just rub your hands and give a nice palming over your eyes. And then when you open them again, find a point not on your computer, but like in your environment that you can focus on for some time. And all of a sudden, a walk if you need a walk, but all of a sudden, your focus will come back. So it can be really beautiful to play with drishti in your yoga practice. Drishti for if you're feeling frazzled or experiencing vata derangement, where you feel worried or anxious, taking your gaze down. And even throughout, your yoga practice is your whole day. So just taking the gaze down. Or if you feel heavy or dull, and thank you, David, we'll see you soon. Or you need to brighten and lighten, taking your gaze up. And just see how that transforms mood and energy quite quickly.
So I find that, and I have a lot of kapha qualities, but I am a backbender. Even if it's in cow pose, when I bring my head up and expand into the heart space, it's almost like an aha moment, or whatever other posture it might be. If it's a camel ustrasana or even a wheel, that's very, very interesting, because I didn't realize that that's what drew me, and it absolutely is. Yeah, it's a change in perspective.
Yes, yes. And that a backbend, a prone backbend that you take on your belly does invite the gaze up always, whether it's camel pose, ustrasana, or bow pose, dhanurasana. You're lifting your heart, you're lifting your gaze. I'll just make a caveat. You didn't say this, but I was about to say it, and so I'm going to correct myself before I do. It's not a heart opener. It's funny. We think of backbends as heart openers. We hear it all the time.
But it does expand the chest. It expands.
It does.
So it's, yeah.
But just so you know, it actually compresses the back of the heart, which is where there are thousands of blood vessels and capillaries that are there to innervate the heart and the lungs and the connection between both. So when we do a deep back bend, it's opening the chest and the muscles of the chest and improving the lung capacity, but at the same time it's literally compressing the back of the heart. So just a note about that, because I've so
Makes sense.
often in my 15 years teaching called it opening the heart, and then when I really learned anatomy, I was like, we're all like, that's closing the heart, if you will. But that's an aside. So, but it's interesting to think. So I'll invite you in a back bend to sense what's happening also to the back of the heart. And it's not bad. Compression is really good in massage. We use compression to create more innervation and blood flow, because we compress and we pause that blood flow for a moment. And then when we release, the blood rushes in, and with the blood comes nutrients and oxygen, and the blood then takes out metabolic waste and toxins and any kind of stuck or stagnant energy. So it's really beautiful to offer compression to the heart. It really is. So it's it's a definite kapha boosting asana. It's a beautiful one. So we're going to go over each dosha and the asanas that are suggested for each dosha. So I didn't write these here. They're not in the slides. So if you want to take notes, feel free. And I'll invite you. We're not going to practice like an asana practice today, but I'll invite you as you go through your day and your asana practice, try these out and just see how it feels in your body. See how it feels in your mind. All right. So when we are working with Vata dosha, we want to have the drishti down. We want to use postures that are grounding, that create stability. We want our pacing to be slow, steady, and rhythmic. So we don't want to talk really fast. Pitta will go crazy with this, so be mindful if you have a lot of people in the room. Pitta's like, hurry up, say what you got to say. Come on now. But for Vata, we move a little more slowly, a little more sweetly, right? A little more steadiness, a little more space in the poses so that we hold them for a longer time. The cueing, we want to use words like stable, grounding, heavy, right? Dense, solid, support. So use words that bring in the opposite qualities than Vata has. Light, cold, airy. Think of warm, heavy, grounding, right? So I have a whole, somewhere from my 300-hour yoga teacher training, I have a whole list that Larissa Carlson gave us. She was my AyurYoga teacher, the dean of Kripalu at Ayurveda, the dean of Ayurveda at Kripalu. And she gave us a whole list of words. So I'll try to find that for you if you want. But you can even just create your own. Just think to yourself, what words will bring in opposite qualities of what Vata has going on, right? So feel the warmth of your breath. Feel the steadiness of your seat on the earth. Feel the grounding nature of the pose. So using words and cueing to incorporate that steadiness and stillness. And then some of the specific asana that we like to use are standing poses. So you can see in this picture here, she's a very Vata character. And Vata people are very flexible generally, right? They're thin, they're light, they're mobile, they're flexible. So they're going to go to their end range. They're going to do the whole thing. They're going to be like really excited about it. We want to keep them away from that end range. So we don't want to do overly flexible or poses that require too much flexibility. That would be much more for like a Pitta individual per se, or a Kapha individual. But Vata, a gentle class is better. We don't want to like take advantage of their flexibility. We want to do things like tree pose, warrior pose. They build steadiness and strength, right? Forward bends are amazing. Forward bends, if you think of Vata being, its home is in the pelvic bowl, a seated forward bend like Paschimottanasana is wonderful for calming Vata. It also automatically invites that kind of pratyahara, the gaze turning inward. So seated forward folds. Back bends are good for Vata, but there's a caveat to them. Back bends are good because they warm the back of the body, right? They're warming. If you do prone back bends, it can be more ideal for Vata. So on the earth, on the floor. So something like Bhujangasana, cobra pose, is a beautiful posture for Vata individuals because their whole body, and you can focus through cueing their attention on the way the tops of the feet touch the earth and ground into the stability there. The way the pelvis connects with the earth and roots into the stability there. And so you can even try this in your own body. Try like a cobra pose or Bhujangasana and see its effects. And then take the drishti down. Play with the drishti once you're in the pose. Take it up or take it down. All asana is fine for all doshas. A lot of it's going to be in the pacing, the cueing, the drishti. And some postures are more ideal than others. So for Vata, standing poses like tree pose, warrior pose, forward bends, especially seated forward bends, back bends that are on the earth, Urdhva Dhanurasana, a full bow pose, might be very like energizing and enlivening, not ideal for Vata, but an on the floor, on the belly, on the floor pose is. All right. Another one that's great is Matsyendrasana, or Ardha Matsyendrasana, the Lord of the Fishes pose. So if you don't know this one, you can just imagine for a moment, I'll show you. And you can even do it in your chair, because I realize not everyone's a yoga teacher here. So it's just kind of legs crossed over each other. The top foot is on the earth. But even if you're in your chair, you can just take your feet to the earth and cross one leg on top of the other. And then sit up nice and tall. And notice which leg is crossed on top. Take the opposite arm on top of that leg. And just gently place your hand on your thigh. We don't want to pull or torque ourselves. And just take a few breaths, lengthening and lining up your spine. And then on your next exhale, just gently turn towards the top leg and look over the shoulder. And take your drishti, take your gaze down to the earth. And really root down through the base of the body. And take a few soft breaths. And when you feel ready, slowly unwind, and we'll come to the other side. So we'll very mindfully unwind the legs and do the whole thing the same way on the other side. Crossing the legs if that feels good. Really noticing the points of your body in connection with the earth. Sitting up nice and tall. Taking the opposite arm across the body and hand gently on the thigh. A few expansive breaths, and then when you feel ready, gently twist, taking the gaze down. And allow the exhales to be full and deep. And when you feel ready, slowly come back to center. And then notice how you feel. So twisting, gentle twisting. Twists help tone the vagus nerve. Maybe it warmed you up a little bit. Maybe it settled a little. So twists are amazing for Vata types. Twists, as I said, tone the vagus nerve. They really help bring about a parasympathetic response, so that rest and repair response. You may have felt that happen as you were just gently twisting and breathing deeply. You're bringing that innervation to that 10th cranial nerve responsible for the parasympathetic response. All right. Any other suggestions? Any other ideas for asana for Vata? Feel free to share some of your favorites if you have any, or if you have questions about something before we move on to Pitta.
Yeah, I think you already mentioned forward folds, but that's like my thing. I always just, when I'm feeling too, vata, I just like touch my toes and twist. Like, yeah, all of that. So good.
Forward folds, all kinds of forward folds are beautiful. Even if you're sitting at a desk, if you just take your hands to the desk and rest your head for a little bit, helps kind of calm and pacify Vata. I'll note one other thing. If you have a personal practice or you teach inversions, so getting your feet above your heart, they can be incredible for Vata, but you want to be mindful of the type of inversion, how much strength it requires, and how long you stay there or keep people there. So Vata types are frail. They have thin bones. They have less muscle. So you don't want to keep them in like a headstand or a handstand for a really long time, or shoulder stand. Just kind of a short amount of time, a couple of breaths, and then come down. That's different for Pitta and Vata because they have more sturdiness and stability naturally inherent in their body. But for Vata types, we don't want to prolong inversions. The only one I would suggest would be okay to prolong would be like a bridge pose. where you're lying on your back and then you just lift your hips up. But even then, it can be a lot on the cervical vertebrae and the backs of the shoulders. Even then, we don't want to hold too long. 2 or 3 breaths is usually adequate to get the benefits of the shape and then not really agitate the vata or hurt them, really. So I'm not an overly protective kind of yoga teacher. I feel like there's a lot of empowerment that needs to happen so that students feel like they can make themselves safe. They don't rely on us to keep them safe. So I believe in empowering individuals. Stay here as long as it feels good. And the moment it stops feeling good, come down. I'm not going to tell you when that is. It's not 2 or 3 breaths for you. You know, it might be 10 breaths. It might be 1 breath. So there's that caveat of, trust your own body and really deeply listen and honor it and what it wants at any given moment in time. For my personal practice today, I love back bends. I couldn't stay in it today. My body was just like, I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to you. It's all right. So moving on, we'll talk about Pitta dosha. Pitta dosha, the fire type. They're generally more muscular, right? There's some more solidity there. There's like a more athleticism in the physical form. They're going to be drawn to more precise language. We experienced the drishti, the point of gaze that was at the horizon line, how that kind of instantly creates a sense of focus. It's a penetrating gaze, right? It like gets you on point, on target, where you are in this moment. We're here. We're here, we're doing it. That's kind of Pitta. So Pitta classes, this will be really good during the summertime. This will be really good for Pitta individuals. We want to cool down some of that excess heat, right? But we need to meet them where they are. So we want to talk quickly. We want to speak precisely. We don't want to say more words than we need to say. Pitta benefits from a lot of space in the talking, right? A lot of space. They benefit, we're not going to talk about music in a little while, but they benefit from either no music or a very specific kind of music. Pitta individuals will be the most picky and unable to relax if the wrong kind of music is being played. Right? So just know that if you have a class full of Pitta individuals, you're going to want to perhaps play no music at all, but we will get into that. Again, the language is precise. The emotions that are inherent in Pitta are this thirst for knowledge, a leadership quality, good concentration ability, but they're also prone to aggressiveness and irritability and criticism and judgment. And so when we're practicing for ourselves, we want to bring in, this is most important, to bring in compassion and love and fun and play. These are kind of the antidotes to the overly serious intellectual Pitta person. So playful things. Pitta wants to know why, right? Pitta's going to want to know, why am I doing this? And you better know why or don't say it, right? So like, I'm a very Pitta individual, especially in my younger years. I'm moving towards my crone years, so I'm changing. I'm sure we all know at certain times how these life phases change us. When we are in the Pitta phase of life, we have a challenge with imprecise information. We can have a challenge with, your husband. We can have a challenge with like over superfluous dialogue that's not necessary. So a Pitta class is to the point. Pitta people love Ashtanga yoga. They know exactly what they're doing. There's very little talking. It's very precise. The postures, the pacing, and the cueing for Pitta are all going to be a little bit slower, a little bit more meditative, and a little bit more cooling in nature, cooling, quieting, calming, inviting playfulness. One of my teachers says, we want to teach to the athlete, the artist, and the scholar. Right? So when we teach to the athlete, we want to give them a little challenge. Pitta likes a challenge. We want to teach to the artist, we want to inspire them, right? We might use a poem or a quote or a reading, a passage from a book. And we want to teach to the scholar. We want to offer precision. We want to offer, this comes to play for me most with Pitta, we want to offer precision, you know, and it's not always possible. We're learning all the time. So that's okay. Self-compassion at the root of everything. But just know Pitta is going to be the hardest student to please. And if you're a Pitta person, you know this, you're hard to please. And so just like be loving with yourself about it. It's okay. And give yourself what you need, right? Honor that. Some of the best things in terms of asana or postures for Pitta are going to be side bends. So triangle pose, extended side angle pose, these kind of like long, like lengthening over to the side, opening up the sides of the body, opening up the heart, opening up the lungs. If you want to just try some movement, if you feel like moving now, just reach an arm overhead and lean over to the side and take a few breaths from your hip all the way up to your fingertips and see how that feels. And soften the shoulder and notice if you turn your chin up and down, where does it feel best? Where does your gaze want to go? Where does your neck feel most comfortable? When you feel ready, we'll do the other side. Pitta benefits from playfulness and invitations to shift and change. Pitta will stay with it forever, even if it's uncomfortable. Pitta is gonna root down and stick with it. So we want to offer invitations for movement. And then just if you want, try side to side just a few times. Maybe a breath in and lengthen and reach, and a breath out and come to center, or stay for a few breaths. Whatever you like the most, do that. Just follow the path and the rhythm of your breath and let your body be the guide. And feel the waterfall of breath trickling down the sides of the body. Just cool, washing waterfall of breath. And when you feel complete and balanced on both sides, we'll just pause in neutral and just gently twist side to side in whatever way feels good. Just harmonizing and balancing, moving from the solar plexus so you can really use this gentle movement to discharge any excess heat in the body. With every out breath, use the power of respiration to discharge heat, inflammation, anything that feels stagnant. And slowly, when you feel complete, coming back to center, notice if there's been a shift. Do you feel cooler or lighter? Perhaps there's a sense of sweetness. So for Pitta, side angle poses, extended side angle, Trikonasana, Upavista Trikonasana, or Parvarita Trikonasana, the twisted triangle pose. Twists are going to also be amazing for Pitta in a little bit of a different way than they were for Vata. So with Pitta, we don't necessarily need to take the gaze down, and the focus changes, right, from calming and looking down towards the pelvic area to the solar plexus, to where the house of Pitta is, or the home of Pitta is. So we focus on the solar plexus in our twists. All kinds of back bends are great for Pitta. Pitta, like I said, will stick with it way beyond the point of comfort or discomfort. So just note that and give permission to not stick with it for so long. Pitta needs to be more gentle with themselves and to be reminded to be gentle with themselves. Child's pose is great for that. Child's pose is another wonderful asana for Pitta. Just the ability to kind of come home to the tenderness within. And again, language, the cueing, the languaging is going to be around cooling, water, sweetness, right? Especially as you move through the class. The idea throughout a class for a Pitta person is to discharge energy so that they can come into calmness and sweetness. So they can discharge whatever may be going on that has irritated them, or maybe they can discharge the overly intellectualizing of everything and just kind of come into sweetness. So child's pose is beautiful. Yeah, that's one of your favorites. Yep. All right. The pacing for Pitta, again, a lot of space between the words, but you can hold them there for a very long time and they're the people, the Pitta people are the people that like, what is it, where you hold a chaturanga for like 60 minutes? I don't even know. You know, they will stick with it. They will compete with themselves. They don't even, everyone around them could have come out of the pose and the Pitta people will be like, nope, I've got this. I'm staying with it. She said 10 breaths. I'm going to do 20. It's kind of amusing. So in the more challenging poses, move them through them quickly. And then in the more sweet poses, keep them there longer, and that will be helpful. They do need to be challenged. So definitely give them some kind of a challenge, whether it's an intellectual challenge or a physical challenge. Holding their breath, their faces are all red. Yes. Yes.
You know, that's a good point. I do notice I hold my breath a lot. I mean, I know we're laughing about it, but you know what? I will say a reminder to breathe is so important for me as a student because I will catch myself holding my breath.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So Pitta types they need to be reminded to be sweet with themselves. Yeah. All right. We'll move into Kapha. If there's anything else you want to share, feel free, and then we'll talk about that. Challenging them to find stillness. No, that's absolutely. They want challenges that they want. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Pitta doesn't love stillness. It's fire. It's rajasic in nature. Pitta likes to move, to learn, to be challenged. So full stillness. I love, you guys are going to, in the 300 hour, but this is coming up as an open class if you want to join. We're doing, I think it's May, we're doing somatics. Somatics are amazing, amazing for Pitta individuals. It helps get them in their bodies in ways that feel really nourishing and safe. And somatics is simply bringing in, somatics is movement. Somatics is, soma means of the body. So somatics is using the concept of soma and listening deeply and building self-awareness and interoception, that ability to listen deeply. And Pitta people benefit from that more than any other doshic type, I find, because they do get so into the intellect that they forget to be in the body. And so somatics helps us come home to the body as the wisdom keeper. And it really teaches us to develop more skill in deep listening to the body and giving it what it wants, more tenderness as well. And I find, again, Pitta people benefit amazingly well from that. Thai massage is great for that. Somatics, restorative yoga. Yin yoga, not so much, because yin yoga, Pitta people are they're gonna get in there and they're gonna stay there and they're gonna be miserable, but they're gonna do it anyway. Like
I had the hardest time with yin. And finally, it took me a couple of years to learn how to enjoy the practice. Most of the time, not all the time. So I guess there's some Pitta in there.
It is a good, yin is great for Pitta. If they can learn to not like to prop themselves and to breathe, to not do that like holding the breath, getting red in the face. Um, I remember some of my first yin classes. Oh my gosh, it's hysterical. I was like, I might as well been doing power yoga. Yeah, so Pitta needs gentleness above all else, and play and joy. It's the balm to the heart, and it brings us down. What is it? The quote or the passage, like the longest journey you'll ever make is from the head to the heart. That's a Pitta person for you. Kapha, Kapha on the other hand, Kapha lives in the heart. Kapha types are so naturally nurturing and compassionate and loving. They're very steady and stable. So they're going to come into the class and sit and just sit. And they're going to do great in meditation. They're going to love yin class. They benefit more from vinyasa. So drishti for kapha types up. Postures are going to be stimulating postures. We want to take advantage of the strength and stability inherent in their constitution, but we also want to, to bring in some activity, some movement. So standing poses are great, especially if they are getting their arms above their head. So like I can't think of the Sanskrit name, but Tadasana with the arms over the head is great for kapha types, or gentle back bends with the arms over the head.
Urdhva right?
Thank you. Urdhva Hastasana. I'm like, how did I forget that? I did Ashtanga forever and ever. But the brain leaves stuff to make room for new. It's the way it goes. Thank you. So Urdhva Hastasana, Tadasana with the arms over the head. If you're feeling kapha energy in your day, it's a kapha day, or it's going on, it's just whatever is happening in the moment in your nature. There's kapha out of balance. Arms over the head, standing poses, right? Star pose, kind of like all spread out, radiating energy through the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. Again, we want to access the strength and stability inherent in kapha, like warrior poses, but we want to bring them through movement, right? So we'll do more. Sun salutations are great for all of the doshas. For vata, we really slow it down, really, really slow. For kapha, we speed it up. For pitta, we tell them to do it and we don't talk. Right? So it's really interesting. All is good for all, but then how do we refine it and make it better? Okay, so warrior poses, Tadasana, Parsva the side angle pose is amazing. Dancer's pose, Natarajasana, right? You have for kapha especially, because you're really, really lengthening through the whole front of the body. You're expanding through the arms. You're really bringing in kind of a brightening energy. And if balances will tolerate this, taking the gaze up. The gaze kind of naturally goes up in Natarajasana, but if your balance is challenged, you'll want to bring it more towards the earth. But if you have a wall nearby, or if you have the stability, kapha oftentimes has the stability to take the gaze up in Natarajasana. It's even better. Shalambhasana, so locust pose on the belly with the arms and the legs lifted, arms overhead lifted. This is a springtime kapha boosting pose. If you just practice this one pose, if you feel kapha imbalanced, if you practice this one pose every day in the morning, it helps so much. This one pose and this one pranayama. That's what I do when I don't have time for a yoga practice, because personally I'm pitta kapha, so I'm very prone to imbalance with both. And so I know that I live there. I know what that's like. But yeah, Shalambhasana, locust pose. You're on your belly, your arms are overhead, and you lift your arms and your legs off the floor. And with kapha, you can move in and out of it. You can kind of lower down and lift back up and lower down and lift back up, using the breath to guide you and really elongating and utilizing the posture to awaken and brighten and warm. And the language that we use is going to be about that as well. We're going to use languaging and cueing that brings about opposite qualities. So if kapha, we've said before, was cold and heavy and dull and stable, right? We're going to use the opposite language. So we're going to use brighten and lighten and radiate and illuminate and warm. So think opposite language brings balance too. The pacing for kapha is going to be faster than any of the others. Kapha is going to resist it, but we're going to get them moving. We're going to get them moving a little bit faster, right? 1 breath, 2 breaths, and move on. Whereas vata will stay in a pose for 5 breaths, all right? So a little faster with kapha. We do want to encourage movement. We want to access, again, the natural, like, inherent lubrication that's there to bring them into a state of balance and ease through the postures. Forward bends are not ideal for kapha. They can like just drop into it. Can you imagine if you have kapha or you have awareness of kapha, if you're like in, say, a Baddha Konasana with your feet together and your knees out to the sides, and you just fold forward, and maybe you have a nice cushion here, like you literally could stay there all day. I don't know about you, but I can. That's why kapha people love yin. So yin might be good during, certain times of year, but if kapha people are doing yin during springtime, you're probably going to experience a lot of imbalance. The same with pitta people doing HIIT training in the summertime, right? Or vata people doing vinyasa in the fall. So we want to think of the seasons in this, not just the individuals. Kapha loves big back bends, expansive back bends, like dancer pose, bow wheel pose, big expansive back bends. And they have the strength and the stability to usually maintain that, right? So finding ways to bring in a kind of a lightening. We're not focused on weight at all in Ayurveda, but kapha has a tendency to hold on to excess weight. So the yoga practice, the asana that we choose, can also kind of help with that warming and releasing of the kapha that's stored in the adipose. It's stored in the fat tissue. So as we warm and melt, we actually help lighten. And we do this through postures and pacing. Okay. Any questions? Any other things that come to mind that are beneficial for kapha individuals or kapha season?
Can you go through some pranayama, or is that next?
That is next.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. So we are ready for pranayama. Pranayama is so powerful, as you know. So with pranayama, we want to be thinking about these 2 qualities, brimhana and langana. Brimhana is nourishing, building, soothing, grounding, and relaxing. And langana is lightening, reducing, drying, and heating. So if we see this, now all of the pranayama can fall under these 2 categories depending on how we teach it, depending on how we cue it and how we modify it. So just by gazing at this brimhana, what type would brimhana be good for?
Pitta,
Yes, pitta.
wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Vata pitta. So it's nourishing, it's building, soothing, grounding, relaxing. It's vata pitta to a T. And then langana, if it's lightening, drying, and heating, langana would be, who would that be for? Yeah. Kapha. Good, good. So that's an overview, right? Just a very simple 2 categories. Pranayama will fit into either category. And almost all of the types of pranayama can be made to be one or the other, depending on how we teach it, how we perform it. We can do this by making it fast or slow, shallow or deep, by extending or shortening the length of the practice and the intensity of it. So it's not which pranayama we're really choosing, although some will be more ideal than others. We'll talk about every specific, well, not every, but we'll talk about quite a few. But it's also how it's being done. So we keep in mind that the Mahagunas and the 10 pairs of opposites are what we're trying to work with. And the ultimate outcome, that's another typo, the ultimate outcome is to enhance sattva, or that sweetness. Okay, so we'll begin with vata. Let's talk about vata again. If vata, we said, would benefit from brimhana, nourishing, building, soothing, grounding, and relaxing, what comes to mind for that? What kind of pranayama practices come to mind that are nourishing and grounding and relaxing?
Your 1-to-2 ratio breath
Yes.
or your longer exhales.
Right, yep.
Nadi Shodhana.
Yes, yes, Nadi Shodhana. Beautiful. 1-to-2 ratio, where you inhale to a count of, say, 4 and exhale to a count of 8. Nadi Shodhana, Anuloma Viloma is Nadi Shodhana, but with the internal kumbhaka and external kumbhaka, with a gentle retention at the top and a gentle retention at the bottom. Okay, so let's practice that for a moment. Let's practice Nadi Shodhana, and then we'll add on a retention, and just to see how the retention changes the pranayama practice. So I'll invite you to just come into a space where you feel at ease in your body, whether that means sitting up a little taller, planting your feet on the earth, maybe shifting to have a pillow behind you or a blanket on your lap or over your shoulders. Just noticing what you need to be comfortable and warm. And then tune into your natural breath, breath flowing in and out through the nostrils. And notice at this moment in time which nostril is dominant. And then go ahead and take your right hand. And if it feels good to take Vishnu Mudra, go ahead and take that. That is your first finger and middle finger tuck in the base of the thumb, and the ring finger and the pinky finger extend. So thumb, ring finger, and pinky are extended in Vishnu Mudra. If this does not feel comfortable, there are 2 other options. Well, there are 3 other options. You can practice Nadi Shodhana without the hands entirely. That's totally fine. You can also simply, if I have a lot of students with arthritis in their hands, so I'll tell them just to take, like, they can just use their first 2 fingers to kind of seal off the nostril. There's also taking those first 2 fingers to the third eye center, and then you'll use your thumb and your ring finger to close off the nostrils. And when you're doing that, if you kind of like right where people pierce their nose, there's a little marma point right in the space where the curve of the nostril meets with the bridge of the nose, and the cartilage of the bridge of the nose. And right where that curve of the nostril meets with the bridge of the nose is a marma point. So it's a point where consciousness accesses the body. So you can use that point, if you like, to touch when you breathe. Okay? So a few options. This one tends to be better, I find, for Vata type because it helps turn the awareness inward. For Kapha types often have a stuffy nose, so I find hands-free is better. So just choose whichever one works for you. And we're going to practice about 5 rounds of this, and then we're going to add on the Kumbhaka. So choosing which version that you choose, taking your hands into position if you're choosing that. Take a soft breath in and a natural full breath out. And then close off the right nostril and gently breathe in left. Seal the left nostril and breathe out right. Breathe in right. Seal it off and breathe out left. Breathe in left. Breathe out right. Breathe in right. And breathe out left. And continuing like this for 3 more rounds. And on your next inhale through the left nostril, when you feel full, pause there, Atara Kumbhaka, internal holding. And pause anywhere from 5 to 30 seconds, holding the breath in, noticing the fullness, the brightening and warming. And when you feel like you need to release the breath out, go ahead and release the breath and shift to the other nostril. And as you exhale through the right nostril, hold the breath out. Baya Kumbhaka, holding empty. Holding the breath empty until you feel the urge to breathe again, and then allowing the breath to flow gently in through the left nostril. Holding at the top, Antara Kumbhaka. Holding the breath in, a gentle cleansing action occurs. And breathing out through the right nostril when you're ready. Hold the breath out via Kumbhaka a gentle warming, heating, and energizing, avoiding breath retentions. Sorry, if you're pregnant, you know this, hopefully. And continuing like this for the next 3 rounds. A gentle retention with the in-breath through the left nostril. Antara Kumbhaka. And a gentle retention on the breath out through the right nostril. Baya Kumbhaka. And just notice the qualities of both. And when you feel complete, go ahead and release the breath. And coming back. And just notice what you notice. And feel free to share. I'm just seeing this question here. Who are the students that come out of breathing practices or skip it? Pizza generally leave behind the pranayama and shavasana parts of class. Yep. Okay. So Nadi Shodhana, Analoma Viloma, when you add on retention, and that breath retention, did you notice anything different between the holding on the inhalation and the holding on the exhalation?
Yeah, I notice there's a different level of almost anxiety or calming. Like it kind of wavers between the two when you're holding or breathing for me.
Right. And did you find that the inhale retention was more anxiety provoking or more calming? Or was it happening for both?
I think the exhale was more calming for me.
Okay, great.
I had to think back when I had to
Oh,
like replay it in my head. I think it was as you inhale. Yeah, the inhale was more anxiety.
okay.
I
So,
mean, nothing horrible, just you can feel the difference between the two.
right, right. So would you suggest that that would be more Brimhana or Langana?
Long than
Yes. Or Langana was the nourishing and relaxing and restoring. I'm going to put the screen back up. And Brimhana was more of the lightening and heating and warming. So I feel like the Langana is happening on the inhale retention. Okay? It's
yeah.
kind of, it's heating, it's provoking, it's known to be cleansing. Yes, anxiety is good to consider with all pranayama, absolutely. And we were just doing that to practice. I wouldn't normally do both in the same practice. We might just add on a subtle internal retention or a subtle external retention. The Langana is that the quality that's going to cut through kapha, right? Kapha dosha. So it can be helpful to hold a little bit with the inhale retention. Antara Kumbhaka. But then Brimhana is that nourishing, building, soothing, grounding, relaxing. That happens automatically with the exhale. So sometimes we can extend that space by creating a little pause at the end of the exhale. This also can be anxiety provoking because it's depending on your blood oxygen levels, but holding on the exhale can be really challenging for some people. So just advise, a gentle approach. And of course, retentions, and I did forget to mention this, so I apologize, are not advised during pregnancy, right? Okay. So is there a sense of preference for internal or external retention? Okay. Like both internal is easier. Yeah, sometimes a little retention feels good. I think that it puts some strain on the heart and the lungs, and your heart and your lungs when you're pregnant. The question is, why is retention not recommended for pregnancy? During pregnancy, there's already a strain on the heart and the lungs. We also don't do this for people with like cardiomyopathy or COPD or congestive heart failure or pacemakers, any kind of conditions that are not treated, or like if high blood pressure is managed by medication, they can do this. If it's not managed, we don't want to do this. The same with pregnancy. It does put a little bit, you may feel this, which is why anxiety may be provoked a little bit. It does put a little strain on the heart and the lungs. And so obviously during pregnancy, we don't want to put any external strain on the body beyond what is already. It's doing so much work already. So, all right. Let's talk about some other types of pranayama. There are so many to choose from. And again, the practice is in deciding the way to teach it to evoke the qualities that we want. So Nadi Shodhana is tridoshic. It's considered tridoshic. It's good for all three doshas. It's not going to take people out of balance, but there might be different ways to cue it and teach it. Do you think a Pitta person would appreciate a really slow Nadi Shodhana practice? I mean, I personally had a hard time with Nadi Shodhana in the beginning. I would get really impatient and like, I don't even understand why still, except it would make me feel really impatient and a little bit anxious. Pitta people really benefit, as well as sometimes Kapha. Kapha due to different reasons. Kapha due to nasal congestion, Pitta due to mind stuff, benefit from hands-free Nadi Shodhana. So if you've ever practiced that, that can be a lovely way to teach it or practice it. And that's simply finding a drishti. You can take the drishti from the nostril. Why don't we do a quick practice of it, if that's okay? You can lie down if you want. Just get a nice long spine one more time. This will make this one quick, but we'll just do a few rounds of Nadi Shodhana hands-free, so you can see if you haven't done this before. So bring your awareness to both nostrils. And imagine that the base of the nostrils is like the base of a triangle. And the point at the third eye center is the top of the triangle. So you have a beautiful triangle from the base of the nostrils to the third eye center and back again. And notice just with your natural breath now which nostril is dominant in the moment. This will change throughout the day as the channels Ida and Pingala become active and dormant. And once you notice, we're going to just direct the breath with the mind up and down this beautiful triangle. So drawing your awareness to the left nostril, the base of the left nostril. As you inhale, feel the breath rise up to the top of the triangle at the third eye. And as you exhale, follow the path of the breath down the right side, out through the base of the right side of the triangle, the right nostril. Inhaling from the right nostril up to the tip of the triangle. And exhaling down the left side of the triangle, out through the left nostril. Inhaling up through the left side. Exhaling down through the right side. Inhaling right. Exhaling left. Inhaling left. Exhaling right. And then releasing the awareness and just coming back to a natural breath. Notice what you notice. Right. Okay, so
I actually prefer that.
I do too. I love the hands-free version. So you might find that useful. And again, it is tri-doshic, but there will be ways of speeding it up or slowing it down that will help bring balance to the Vikriti, to what is out of balance in the moment. So that hands-free practice, again, is beneficial for Pitta Kapha imbalance. It might be a lot for Vata to concentrate, so Vata might benefit more from this mudra. Yeah. So those are some things to consider about Nadi Shodhana Pranayama. Now let's talk about Brahmari. Brahmari breath, the bumblebee breath, that beautiful humming bee sound. Brahmari breath, would you think it could be Brimhana or Langana? Is it nourishing and building and soothing and grounding, or lightening and drying and heating, or both? It can be both, right? Yeah. I mean, I think all of them can be both, really, but we can teach them in such a way that they have more of one quality or more of another. So let's just take a few humming sounds together, if you like, just so we can all kind of come into it and create a resonance so we can tune into what it's evoking within ourselves. And simply align the spine again, however feels good. You can touch the tip of your tongue behind your front teeth. This breath is safe for everyone. It's only contraindicated if you've had recent sinus surgery. So just know it's a gentle, gentle pranayama, as is Nadi Shodhana. And with this one, we're going to create the sound of the female honeybee, which has a very particular sound. Okay, so breathing in softly through the nose and breathing out fully through the nose. And another soft breath in to begin. We're going to create the humming sound, touching the tongue behind the teeth, keeping the lips sealed. Extending the breath for as long as feels good, and then just beginning again. We'll do 3 breaths. And just notice what you notice. Feel free to share. And then I'll give you some cueing techniques to shift this depending on the dosha. How did it make you feel? Was it warming, grounding, lightening, soothing? What did you note about the length of the practice and the intensity of it? warming and soothing. Beautiful. So we did that quite briefly and quite quickly. Right? So that was warming and soothing. We might create a different rhythm and a different pace if we really want to create a certain effect. So when it's a little quicker and a little less time, it might fall under the category of more langana, more lightening, more reducing, more heating. So the warmth that came through. It's a really wonderful practice. If you take the gaze and focus the humming sound in the sinus cavity, it's a wonderful practice for kapha. Keeping it quick, keeping it light, keeping it up, right? Up. And then alternately, if we slow it down and we take the gaze into the heart center, there are generally two drishtis for Brahmari Pranayam. One is in the sinuses, the third eye center, and one is in the heart. So alternately, if we were to take the gaze down, I didn't cue a gaze, but if we were to, we take it down to the heart, we slow it down and we do it for an extended period of time, then it's more brimhana. It's more grounding, more nourishing, more relaxing, more better for Vata Pitta. So that can, you see a little how we can take a breath and cue it in such a way that's good for your Vikriti, depending on the words, the pacing, the drishti, same like the asana, where we're taking the attention and how long we're doing it for and how intense is it. Were we doing it really loud or really soft? When I feel very kapha congested, I will do it really loud and I will focus it all right here. And it has a shifting energy. But if I want to like tend to my heart space, I'll do it really soft and really gentle and bring the gaze down. And then Brahmari Pranayama becomes a heart tonic. The Shiva Samhita, the beautiful text, says that practicing Brahmari Pranayama is immersing your heart in an ocean of love. So, an ocean of bliss. I'm sorry, it's Ananda bliss. So Brahmari Pranayama is a beautiful one, but it can be more invigorating, enlightening, and drying, and work for people to clear congestion, to clear a cloudy mind. Or it can be more nourishing and soothing and tending to the heart space. Okay. So we're going to go through a few more pranayamas just like this, kind of alternating ideas of how they shift depending on cueing, technique, and pacing. Any questions so far? Any insights? Okay. All right, the next one is Kapalabhati pranayama. The skull polishing breath. I'm doing the main pranayamas. There are many more than this, but we're going to cover 4 main ones today. Kapalabhati pranayama, or the skull polishing breath, is a short, passive inhalation and a forceful burst of exhalation. So it's a very soft inhale, almost no effort whatsoever, and a full burst of exhale, using the belly to pump the breath out. We don't want to do it. I see a lot of Bhastrika. It's different than the breath of fire. Bhastrika is the breath of fire, and Kapalabhati is the skull shining breath. And they're a little bit different. The only difference is the inhalation, the way that we're inhaling. We are going to do both today. You will avoid Bhastrika. Bhastrika is contraindicated for pregnancy, but Kapalabhati is okay. It can be gentler. We're going to talk about ways to make it really soft and gentle and subtle, or more vigorous and activating and kapha clearing. So Kapalabhati, the skull polishing breath, that's short, soft inhalation, full forceful exhalation. What I was saying was, you see people oftentimes, they take it into their chest. So I'll show you the breath and then we'll do it. I'll show you the right way and the wrong way and then we'll do it. So I like to place my hand on my belly just for awareness sake. And then it's a soft breath in through the nose, and you use your belly to pump the air out. Okay. What I often see is, I don't even know if I can do it, but right? So don't put it in your shoulders. Try to keep your chest really soft, and the action is going to come from the belly. And it's a very soft breath in. Again, it's not forceful, whereas Bhastrika is equal inhales and exhales. Kapalabhati has a focus on the exhale. If you have a baby in your belly, don't pump vigorously. It's just a very gentle, even if you don't have a baby, it's just a very gentle, draw the navel in towards the spine. It's kind of like sharp, sharp, sharp. And that will shift for pitta imbalance. But traditionally, it's practiced with a sharp pulse of the navel center, just like that. Very precise, very sharp, not in the chest at all. So we'll just try 4 breaths or so if you'd like to join. And if you feel like not joining is more ideal for you, the invitation then is to take your right hand to your left ribs and your left hand to your, take it to your right ribs. I'm so into somatic experiencing, I almost started to go into that, but let's hold the ribs just to get a sense of full 360-degree breath. So as you breathe in, notice the ribs expand. And as you breathe out, notice how they soften and contract. A gentle inhale, everything expands. A gentle exhale, everything contracts. So keeping that 360-degree breath with the Kapalabhati pranayama, or staying just with the 360-degree breath. That's perfectly fine too. So a very gentle version of Kapalabhati would be, I'm going to begin, and you can come in when you feel ready if you decide to join. And we're going to keep it gentle, we're going to keep it soft, and we're going to keep it slow. So this will be good for Vata dosha. Okay, soft, gentle, slow. I'm going to do a soft breath in through the nose, full breath out through the nose. I might need a tissue. Really slow. So there's 4 breaths. So that was quite a gentle version of Kapalabhati pranayama, and it is appropriate for almost everyone. All right, that would be great for Vata types. The benefits of that, they will still receive. The benefits are clearing the mind, clearing the sinuses, awakening energy, brightening, and warming. Okay, so it's just really slow. You do it for more than 4 breaths. Generally, you do 3 rounds of, anywhere from like 10 to 30 breaths each. Okay, so that's great and pacifying for Vata dosha. Let's try a Pitta version of Kapalabhati pranayama. A Pitta version will be more forceful, more robust, and paced a little faster, right? But it'll still be very gentle. It won't be an incredibly forceful breath. It'll still be quite gentle. And it will be a rhythmic, steady pace. And we'll just, to get a pace going, we'll just do this for about 6 breaths. Again, if you need to clear your nose, go ahead and do so. And keeping this now more appropriate for Pitta dosha, Kapalabhati pranayama. Taking a soft breath in to begin. And just gently allowing the breath to return to normal. I'm breathing a little bit through my mouth because I have such a stuffy nose, but I don't want to. You will note that inhale is really soft and passive, and the exhale is a burst of exhale. It's very sharp. It's very penetrating. You're using your abdomen, some strength, abdominal strength, to help pump the air out. Again, it's warming, it's lightening, it's a little drying. Especially as we up the pace, it becomes more and more drying. The third rounds will be ideal for kapha. I've been doing this every morning in the spring because allergy season. This is an amazing version of it. I love to do Brahmari pranayam first, just to bring vibration, to bring blood flow, and then to move into this version of Kapalabhati. This version of Kapalabhati, I bring in movement too. So the other two, when we do Kapalabhati for Vata types and for Pitta types, we're more still, right? Especially for Vata, we're very slow. It's very soothing. We're going to do the opposite for Kapha. We want to bring movement. We want to bring warmth. We want to bring speed. We want to bring energy. So just very gently, if it feels good for you to do in your body, I'm going to invite you to do Kapalabhati pranayama with a little bit of a spinal flexion and extension. I learned this from Dr. Vasant Lad, and it's one of my favorite ways to perform this pranayama because it really helps clear that kapha energy from the lower lobes of the lungs. It likes to kind of settle in there and it gets a bit sticky. And when you do Kapalabhati pranayam or even Bhastrika pranayam with, it's a big Kundalini practice, right? Like with the spinal undulations, you just help move things a little more. You help bring a little more heat, a little more circulation, a little more rajas, a little more activity. So we're going to do this one. We're going to do this one for 10 breaths. So if you feel like the first was better for you, if you're pregnant or if you're a Vata type, you might want to stay with the really slow, really rhythmic, soft kind of practice. If you want to stay with the Pitta, kind of sharp and focused on the navel center, or if you want to move into this more Kapha Kapalabhati, we're going to invite this movement and a very quick pace, and always focusing though on keeping it out of the chest and shoulders and in the belly. In the lower here, the lower lobes of the lungs can be your focus. All right, so if you'd like to join in, we'll begin with a soft breath in and a full breath out. And when you're ready, 10 rounds. And slowing it down, gradually returning the breath to normal. And it was very brief, but still perhaps enough time for you to notice an effect. Was there a shift between, if you've done all three, did you notice a shift between the way we did all three? All three versions of the same pranayama. And welcome back, David. Okay. So we, again, can adapt all of the pranayama to the Vikriti, depending on pacing, how deep or shallow we breathe, how long we practice for, and the intensity of our practice. Okay. The fourth breath, which we won't practice, but it's very similar to Kapalabhati in the way to make it more accessible for each dosha type, would be Bhastrika, that breath of fire, which is the forceful burst of an inhalation and forceful burst of an exhalation. It's more of the bellows breath. I always taught it by imagining a puppy panting. If you pant like a puppy, it's equal inhale, equal exhale, quite quick and through the nose. The same thing, we can make it with pacing be a little more nourishing and soothing if we move really slowly. I probably wouldn't generally recommend Bhastrika for Vata types. I would lean into Kapalabhati for that. But if they had a need, there is a benefit. Bhastrika is heating. Let's think of the qualities of breath of fire. It's in the name, right? It's going to awaken warmth, awaken fire. but it's going to vitiate prana. It's going to really, we want to kind of contain prana with vata. We want to bring it inward. And to me, Bastrika is really expansive. So it's great for kapha dosha, but not ideal for vata. That would be one I would suggest kind of avoiding. All right, so let's review. And I'm going to go now into some of the primary pranayama practices for the types. Vata dosha, Anuloma Viloma, Brahmari, Kapalabhati, Nadi Shodhana, and Ujjayi. We didn't practice Ujjayi, but a very soft Ujjayi. Again, the ocean sounding breath. It can be quite vigorous, it can be intense, it can be loud, or it can be soft. It can be slow, it can be steady. So I would lean into the soft and the slow and the steady for Vata dosha. Vata dosha will benefit from meditation practice like Yoga Nidra, a guided meditation. Meditation that has a focal point, right? There's not too much space. There might be a really strong focal point for the meditation, whether it's mantra meditation or mudra. For Vata dosha, when they're practicing pranayama and meditation, we're going to want to make sure that they're warm, that there aren't any drafts. We'll want to encourage them to get a shawl or a blanket to put over their shoulders or their lap. In Yoga Nidra or Shavasana, for people of Vata dosha type, it's really wonderful to use those weighted sandbags, right? Right on the pelvis, right on the hips, right on the bowl of the pelvis where Vata dosha lives. So try them in yourself and see if, like, during Vata time of day, say 2 to 6 p.m., one of my favorite things to do is if I'm feeling sometimes, I'm feeling so tired and all I want to do is take a nap. But instead, I will lie down and do like legs up the wall pose with a weighted bag on my hips. And it feels so amazing and refreshing. So just notice if you are taking time in meditation and rest in the day, what dosha is prevalent? How can you bring it into balance with pranayama? And then what kind of other things can you bring in? We're going to talk about music and we're going to talk about colors. Pitta dosha, pranayama for Pitta dosha. Same, Anuloma Viloma and Nadi Shodhana, but we're going to do it at a very steady pace. We might add counting to it. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Kind of like the box breath or Samavritti pranayama. You can do that with Nadi Shodhana. And that can be really helpful. Focus the mind. Also hands-free, as we shared. Hands-free can be really wonderful. Agnisara. Agnisara, the practice of churning the abdomen, holding empty of breath, can be really powerful for balancing Pitta dosha. Okay. And Pitta benefits from structured meditation too. Just like we structure the pranayama, we count, we give it a pace, we give it a rhythm, we give it a focus. We can do the same thing like Japamala, Soham meditation. Metta meditation is amazing for Pitta types. The loving kindness meditation is very beneficial. All right. And then Kapha. Kapha's going to benefit from the warming and heating, more vigorous teaching of pranayama or more vigorous practice. So we want to speed things up a little bit. If we're doing Brahmari breath, we want to bring the drishti up a little bit. We'll focus in the sinus cavity, in the third eye center. We'll want to think of using pranayama to warm and lighten and clear, right? Clear stagnant energy. So Um, Agnisara is also good for kapha dosha, that churning of the abdomen. Bhastrika is the best pranayama for kapha dosha, and Bhastrika with a little addition of movement to it can be really beneficial. Brahmari and Kapalabhati. So those are just some suggestions. And again, keeping in mind, other than Bhastrika, all of these pranayama are beneficial for all of the doshas. We just kind of tweak the pacing and the way we teach it in order to make it either more nourishing and soothing and grounding, or more warming and lightening and clearing. Okay. And meditation for kapha. One of my favorite meditations for kapha dosha is like trataka gazing, the oil lamp gazing. Also for pitta. Pitta, if your eyes are feeling like imbalance of pitta, trataka meditation is powerful. It's the candle gazing. Kapha dosha benefits from lightening and brightening. So gazing at the candle, meditations. Oh, hi, Maverick. Meditations that like white light meditations. There's a beautiful meditation that Larissa Carlson teaches of envisioning the flame in the heart traveling down to the palms of the hands. I actually recorded some of that, so I'll make sure I share it. But meditations that bring in light and illumination and radiance and warmth will be great for kapha dosha. All right. So that's about everything on pranayama. Any other suggestions or reflections on pranayama for the doshas? All right. We're going to move through the next two parts really quickly. Raga, or the music that we use. So there's a whole body of yoga called Nad Yoga, or the yoga of sound. And this incorporates music, it incorporates chanting, it incorporates just the sense of the vibratory field as able to draw us into that state of union. But if you're teaching or practicing, just a few suggestions on types of music. Vata benefits from slow, soothing music with gentle rhythms and soft melodies. I don't ever really recommend music with words unless it's chanting and unless you're not working with a specific kind of trauma population. So for example, working with veterans, we would never use music with words of any kind. Barely ever use music at all. We might use nature sounds. Okay, so this is more about doshas, not about trauma. That's a whole nother thing. So just know. But generally, overall, nature sounds across the board are beneficial. Birdsong in and of itself has been proven to uplift the mood and establish a sense of safety in the nervous system, which is quite beautiful. If you think about, like, evolutionarily speaking, when birds are singing, there's not danger nearby. So our nervous systems are designed to recognize that. So birdsong can be really beautiful, but pitta people might get annoyed, so be careful. Pitta people need a very particular kind of sound or not sound. Oh yeah, it's really sweet. Try it. I play birdsong in the morning in my house, and it just relaxes everybody a bit. But it can't be like loons or something. There's a very particular, because pitta. So Vata's slow and soothing, though. You know, it's the opposite. Pitta is going to be calming and cooling. Waterfall music is wonderful for pitta. Ocean waves, amazing for pitta. And then kapha, we definitely want energizing music. We want uplifting, faster tempo, rhythmic kind of drum beats can be really helpful. We can use music to stimulate more of the opposites, more of the activities that we like and we're looking for. Any favorite music or practices around music that you guys are using? All right. Colors. This is another favorite piece because it's one that, oh, scents. Okay, let's go colors first. Okay, so colors are so cool, right? Like we can actually change the way we feel by the colors that we wear. There's in Vedic technology, there's certain colors assigned to certain days of the week. You can perhaps use that to inform your dress. Or the invitation is to use colors and the way you dress to kind of bring about balance in the doshas. So if Vata types or Vata time of year, you're going to want to see more warm and grounding colors, some earthy browns and oranges and yellows, colors that are associated with earth, dark greens. Pitta is going to benefit from cooling, calming colors. I always think of Pitta, I think of the beach. I think of blues and pastels and light greens and like peaches and the color of the sky. And then kapha is more stimulating. We want energizing color, like this color palette, you know. We want bright red and pink and purple. Those are the colors of the spring. And so when we use color, we can also invite that to help balance the doshas. And so just notice how color affects mood. How if you put a bright color on or you put a bright scarf on, you might feel a little bit different. And if you're teaching yoga, you might want to wear the colors that are bringing in the opposite qualities. So the kapha colors, the energizing. Right now during this season, reds, pinks, and purples are ideal. All right. Is this new or has everyone heard that before? Yeah, so getting familiar with this and inviting it in if it feels good. All right, and then scents. This can go, I always recommend essential oils. I do not recommend, obviously, anything chemical. So perfumes and air fresheners and things like that you're going to lose all the benefits by the chemicals. So definitely invest in some good quality essential oils. If you need a place to find some, I have an incredible woman that I work with. She's got all kinds of artisan produced, wonderfully organic and cared for well and sustainably grown oils. So small batch too. Oops. But considering again, it's just the themes are weaving through everything. For Vata, we want warming and grounding. So this goes for scents. This can go for the kind of tea that you make yourself and the kind of herbs and spices you use in your diet. Right? To calm Vata, we want spice. We want cinnamon and vanilla and clove, frankincense, sandalwood. Sandalwood is tridoshic. Sandalwood and lavender are tridoshic. They're good for all three. The spicy scents help bring Vata down, help pacify it. And then Pitta, again, sweet, think sweet and cool with Pitta. So the floral scents, rose and jasmine and peppermint and fennel, these are very sweet and can help cool an overactive Pitta mind. And then finally, kapha individuals benefit from really stimulating scents. So eucalyptus, camphor, ginger, black pepper, basil, bergamot. I use bergamot all the time. These can be really lovely, and just do it in a way that's like natural, you know, so that you can bring them into your life and promote health with them. So essential oils, herbs for your tea, herbs for your bath. You can diffuse them. You can get like frankincense rocks and diffuse them. Yeah, so that is everything that I have anyway for the day. And you'll get access to this. What I'll invite you to do, if you like, just jot down all of the elements that you would incorporate into a yoga class for each of these types. And if you'd like, feel free to send it to me, and I'm happy to offer feedback. But you might want to check into asana, pranayama, meditation, color, scent, and music. and just really tune into what would be most beneficial and balancing for each dosha based on what we've talked about and what you've learned with Nidhi, and continually tweaking your own understanding for yourself and for those you serve. All right. And with that, I'm complete. Thank you so much for your time and attention and presence. And I'll pause here. If there are any questions, feel free to ask. Oh, thank you, Cindy. I'm so happy you were here. I'm glad that it was an amazing 4 weeks for you.
I
It's
appreciate
been
you
really
letting me
fun.
in.
This has been so great. I also wanted to add, I had a really good conversation with my Thai massage person, and I thought I'd share something that came out of the conversation with regards to like, and I'm sorry I'm late, or like missed part of it, but we were talking about sometimes it can be challenging to like, well, not always challenging, like the themes of Ayurveda are always like useful to think about, but sometimes when things get very like prescriptive, there can be a way that some people like disconnect from the thing a little bit, like when it feels, and or one thing that came up that I thought I'd share because it was just like an interesting thought was like the what seems important also is that like you can apply these principles in whatever you're doing and whatever people have a relationship with. Like say people practice very vigorous forms of yoga and they're not interested in letting that go, even though that's like maybe out of balance for them. Um, they can still bring from an inside out perspective like these principles and like through the relationship that they already have with whatever they're doing, which I thought was like a really interesting piece. And sometimes, going outside in is effective, and sometimes going inside out, like, changing an attitude or bhava towards like whatever you're doing. So, so maybe people don't have an option, but they have to be very vigorous. But there's an inner cultivation that can happen that's like with these. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was just it made sense to me, and I thought I'd share that here because it was I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. It is the truth because we may not, or our clients may not, our family members may not be ready to outwardly make all of the changes that would bring about balance, but there is that inward cultivation. Even something like drishti of gazing and focal point can totally change the dynamic of a shape that your body is taking or your
Hmm.
energy. So absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much.
And I really agree with Cindy. It's been a really amazing 4 weeks.
Oh, I'm so happy you're all here. And I'm so honored to share. And I hope that you continue to delve into this. It's a lifetime worth of study, obviously, lifetimes, many of them. Um, and I'm here if you have questions. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now. Shri Matre Namaha.
Thank you, Jeanette. Have a good day.
You too.